What's up, everybody? So good to see you again. Every Thursday we do this, and today we will have our first repeat guest. I was about to say customer. Josh has spent 19 years as a trainer. Josh Trent from Wellness Force has spent 19 years as a trainer, researcher, and facilitator, discovering the physical and emotional intelligence for humans to thrive in our modern world. Again, this is the second time we've had him on. This is the first time we've done a second-time guest, and we're really going to focus on something we touched on last time, but didn't dive fully into. And then later on IG, Josh and I were talking, and he just mentioned something about emotional inventory again. And I remembered, I was like, dude, I think we could do an entire episode on that. Bada bing, bada bam, here we are. Thursday, we're going to do it. So we're going to be focusing on emotional inventory and keeping it to 1 hour. So with that being said, let's hop right into it on the Ben Stewart Podcast. And we're back live and in person. We got Josh Trent in the house again, my man. How you doing?
Doing really good. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be a repeat. That's pretty cool. That's a cool honor coming from you, Ben. And you, Gordo.
Yeah. That first one.
Yeah.
Gordo's over here pushing all the buttons. This one's going to be really fun. I love having a focus. And this one specifically is something that I'm going to go, small and big within this to fulfill this topic, emotional inventory. Yeah. But I really want to just let you take it away for the beginning, Josh. We gave you the intro. We know a little bit about who you are, but I want to know, with emotional inventory, how would you define it, and why is it important in the modern world today?
The modern world. By the way, thank you. This is such a beautiful topic. I mean, we can go for a long time, so we have a lot to cover in, about an hour or so. If you think about really what emotions are, they're a feedback system. So we have emotion, which is energy and motion that lives in our body. And then we have feelings. Well, feelings create actions or movement. So if we can take a true inventory of our emotions, of our energy that's in motion, and of our feelings, which we know that feelings create actions or movement, then we can actually start to see our lives through three distinct lenses. Well, really it's one, but I'm going to describe it as three. So we have the ego, which, there's a lot of, I guess you could say, curriculum out there that wants to demonize the ego. I don't believe in that. I think the ego is our friend. I think it's our amigo. And the ego has a proclivity to protect itself and to be right. And so when we start taking the inventory that I'm going to describe today, we can start to see the gaps in our ego, not to make it wrong, not to shame our ego, but to see it for what it truly is, right? It's a protector. The second lens is our heart space. Some people call it the heart chakra. I just call it the place where we experience our emotions. When I feel something in my heart, it's inescapable, right? I either feel it, I allow myself to feel it, or I don't. So the heart is where we experience our emotions, our feelings, this energy and motion. And then lastly, the third lens of this is our soul. It's our connection to higher power. It's our connection to God, whether you describe God as a bearded dude in the sky or whether you have a different definition of higher intelligence. So when we look at our inventory, and everybody knows what inventory means, it's when you look, take stock, count, take really ownership for what is in you already from an emotional standpoint. You're literally checking out the internal stock room of your soul, of your ego, of your heart, and you're listing it out so that truly the single lens that watches all of these, which is our observer, it's the thing that is watching us as we're here on this podcast, which is pretty wild and pretty mysterious, all at the same time. So these three lenses really are a fractal that goes into one singular lens. And so that's the pre-frame for what emotional inventory actually is. Emotional inventory is the process of seeing your life through those three lenses and then making a decision from the singular one. But until we take inventory of what's really going on with these three, I guess you could say, archetypes or phases or individuations of self, then it can be really challenging because many of us feel trapped by these emotions, feel trapped by the thoughts that we're thinking, AKA the voices of the ego. And none of these aspects I'm demonizing, none of these aspects are wrong or bad. They just are. they simply just are. So the emotional inventory is viewing your life through those three lenses and making the decision from the singular one.
I love that, looking at it as three lenses. And I'm pretty sure when you said like they're really just one, you're talking about like this is consciousness we're talking about.
It's consciousness.
I wanna touch upon something you said about the heart, because you were basically just mentioning, you know, when you feel something in your heart. I was feeling that like when you feel something in your heart, you don't question it. It's not up for debate. You know, the intellect, probably more associated in some people's minds with ego, but I mean that may or may not hold some water. But the idea of the intellect, its whole job is to debate. Its whole job is to dissect and pull apart, and in a sense, like look for holes and leaks. But the heart, when it feels something, it's like it does not care to try and or prove it objectively, collectively. It just knows there's nothing beyond that. And the soul also, I love, because the way you kind of mention it, I also feel that that's the voice of our intuition. When you say I'm listening in for my intuition, it almost feels like that's your soul guiding you. And I do feel like the soul speaks loudest through the heart, and then also through this just epi lens. So I love the way you're mentioning that. The importance for the world that we're living in today, post 2020, and I only mention it that way to say that like we are definitely experiencing something, and it's volatile, it's inflammatory, and I'm curious your thoughts on the role, maybe the highly important role of things, disagreements socially on larger scales. The inflammation has a role. So like there's, to me, it feels like maybe there's a bit of honoring what the inflammation is showing, what kind of a teacher it is. But then once things are inflamed, how do I see a lot of people, including my kids and oftentimes myself, where when I notice that I'm wrapped up in something, it takes a lot of power for me to calm myself down, take a breath, and interrupt this normal, you know, rising action that I'm feeling inside me, and interrupt it with, okay, Ben, check in. You know, like, the words I'm about to speak, is it coming from the heart? Is it coming from hurt? So I would love to know your thoughts on the role of inflammation, and also how we could use this not as, again, another boogeyman, like I'm offended or I'm triggered by what I'm reading, but like letting it be somewhat of a teacher. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this, and how emotional inventory comes into a world that seems to be kind of pitted against one another, whether through algorithms or just, you know, the way the cookie crumbles.
Well, I'll do my best to not reductionize, but I may. And I think this is my intellect, my ego, my heart, my soul, making sense, making meaning of some very, very big concepts, Ben. So if you try to truly understand why pain is a teacher, why inflammation comes with gifts, it can be so complex and so nuanced that it's really up to the subjective experience. So everyone is a subject. And I guess a good way to describe this and break it into pieces would be, we all have a subjective experience. So when if I experience pain from Facebook, somebody, you know, saying I'm a terrible podcast host, and, you know, I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and blah, 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 and I'm hurting people and all this stuff. So this is the pain that I experience. It's a reflection of behavior, but more importantly, it's this experience that I have internally when I believe that a subjective truth that I'm experiencing is real. But sometimes, a lot of times, all of us, we forget that subjective truth is way different than objective truth. So this inflammation is a beautiful teacher, because when we're in pain, when we're struggling, when I'm arguing, when I make mistakes, which I do quite a bit, especially in relationships or fill in the blank, right? Being a father, it's all a big learning curve for me now. But what I'm really saying is, we have to do our very best to have self-reflection and inventory, because if not, to the degree that we're traumatized, and it can be capital T, sexual, physical, things like that. Lowercase t, neglect, unsupportive parents, things like that. To the degree that we're traumatized, that is going to be how quickly we shift in our nervous system to the sympathetic fight, flight, flee, or freeze, or fuck you, I'm going to kill you, right? Like these are the way it feels in our nervous system. And it could be if I pick up my phone and I see someone on Twitter blasting me, or I see someone blatantly disrespecting me, or I see a child bring home a coloring book that says Kamala Harris is the president in 2020. All these things can trigger us. But guess what? We experience those first in the physical. And in the physical is where our mind resides. And our mind is built off of all these structures and sutures that connect to our intellect and our ego that pulls from a subconscious repository that we believe to be true. So in other words, the more that we constantly scrub, constantly negotiate, actually not negotiate, question's a better word. I don't have any purpose of negotiating with my ego, of negotiating with my heart. I don't want to negotiate with what's there, because then I'm not working with nature. I'm forcing against nature. But what I'm saying is, like, when we are seeing things for how they truly are, we will take that inventory of what's going on with my head, my intellect, my ego, specifically my ego. Why am I so on fire right now? Why do I want to physically, I feel in my body, kill this person or attack this person? Can I take a breath? And we've talked about this before. And I remember when we did the podcast at my house, we breathed, right? We breathed, because when we breathe, we can slow down the pace of ourselves. We can shift ourselves to more of the parasympathetic, which is that relaxation, calmness, relaxed jaw, relaxed stomach. What's happening to all of us, Ben, myself included, is we are going through a really, really big threshold. The eye of the needle is truly right now the eye of the needle. So we are all being squeezed real tight through this transformational portal. And as we're being squeezed, essentially all of our shit's coming up. So we may as well take inventory of it. I mean, that's really what's going on. 2022, it's the year of the mirror. It's where we look at 1 + 1 = 2. It's where we look at ourselves. So there's so much to unpack here, but that's really a pre-frame for how we can see emotional inventory being a powerful tool for the intellect, ego, heart, and soul. And then obviously the observer that sees them all.
Dude, I love that. And I love the way you speak to it. I'm curious. It feels like, I was thinking about this earlier, preparing for today. I was thinking that, without using the word scale, like, what does a collective version of this look like? Because it's tricky, because the individual has to be engaged. So first, like, it's almost like we need to address it at that level, to a degree where it's so self-evident that people understand, okay, this is really how I do it. And then I'm thinking collectively, taking emotional inventory. Like, I'm just curious about how people get behind a computer screen when they don't have to actually look at somebody's face, when they don't really have to feel the impact of what, like, hurtful words can do to somebody else, especially when somebody's just, trying to give it their best. And, especially like us, we've made a profession out of sharing our thoughts and our concepts, and being humble and being authentic and genuine in front of the camera. And I know those moments all too well. All the way back to 2008 when I was making films, I was getting a lot of this kind of commentary. So I'm curious, like, what could that look like, emotional inventory on a collective scale? And if that's something that could actually be, I don't know, I hate to relegate it to algorithms and stuff like that, but something where we could be seen, the year of the mirror, I think technology is a hyperdimensional mirror. So I'm curious of your thoughts on, like, how that can spread without needing to go through some, massive business scaling.
Yeah, it's beautiful, because I think most entrepreneurs, they want to solve a problem, and they want to solve a really big problem. And, that obviously makes them get paid a lot. What I'm about to share could be that, could not be. I don't know. I've been thinking about this too, man. I'm thinking about the exact same thing. Like, how do we all collectively look in the mirror? But the reality is that we're so distracted from our lives that even taking a breath or looking in the mirror, it might be too painful. The ego might say we don't have enough time, or it might hurt too much. It might be any one of those. So if I'm literally taking the time, unfortunately or fortunately, it's probably going to be because I'm in pain, or I'm going to be so down and out, or I'm going to be on my third marriage, or I'm going to be, picking up my kids again from school that won't talk to me, or I'm going to be looking at my body in the mirror and sad, or I'm going to be feeling like I can't relax and I haven't dealt with my trauma. There are so many things that make us project onto others, that make us hurt others, that make us have a terrible narrative about ourselves. In order for us to take a real breath and turn and physically look in the mirror, I don't know, Ben. It is a magical question with a potent answer, but I think it looks like this. I think it looks like taking a conversation that we're having right here that has no agenda other than seeking truth and understanding what's real, and then taking this and creating other human beings that have the emotional intelligence and the capacity, not creating them, but fortifying them, giving them these gifts so that they have these conversations much like ripples in a lake. So you and I create a ripple, we throw in a rock of consciousness, it ripples, and then other ripples hit other ripples. And then before you know it, the water's sloshing around and then the shoreline changes. And I think that's what we really need to do. So how do we do that? We have very vulnerable, not for the sake of marketing or media, but we just truly have very vulnerable conversations with one another. And in that vulnerability, there is so many fucking gifts that come out where we realize that, oh my God, my neighbor across the street, he's dealing with exactly what I'm dealing with. All right, cool. Hey, Stan or Frank or Julie, are you okay to come to a group with me, to a men's group? Are you okay to come on to the Ben Stewart Podcast YouTube channel and watch some content with me one night when we have some fun drinks together or something? It's making personal development. It's making emotional intelligence not such a pressure cooker, not such a challenge, not such an arduous loop with no ending. I find that in a personal development industry, and even the question you might ask is, how do we look collectively in the mirror? It might challenge people so much that are already so exhausted and so distracted. It is the last thing that they are physically drawn to do. And I think that's where we really need to begin is start with the physical. How do you feel in your body? What's really going on there? Let's make it exciting and fun. And really the best word that I could use to describe this is purposeful and fulfilling to have these conversations without it being so serious all the time. Because a lot of the seriousness that's out there, it's just feeding on more seriousness. So I think it starts in that container, and I think it goes out from there.
Yeah, I love that. The touching upon the seriousness side of it is definitely something that in stressful times, it's hard not to take these things seriously.
Well, you're shamed if you don't. If you don't take it seriously, you're a dick, in a lot of people's minds. And it's look, I take it serious, but is the approach to be this dogmatic about it the most effective way to build the bridges we want to build? Yeah.
Do you manifest well from the state of seriousness? And I don't think the act of playfulness is a detraction from how potent, not crucial, but potent the opportunity is. When we're noticing something inside of us that is really stretching our ability to be able to stay cool, calm, and collected, it almost seems like our first instinct is to start feeling like something's going wrong, panicking. And then if we can't hold that charge, then the first thing we do is we project it onto the person who we claim is making us feel this way.
Yeah.
And that's got to be part of the emotional inventory. I would really love to hear your thoughts on maybe even an example. I know you've already given one, but kind of an example of you in action.
I got a really good one. Inventory. Yeah. So think of it like this. We all are in relationship, either with ourselves or with others. So whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're in a partnership, however you relate, this will hit you because we all experience this. As an example, just for simplicity, I'll use a heterosexual relationship, right? But it doesn't matter. You can have any of these constructs. So with my woman, she will say something. And when she says something, dependent on how tired I am, how hungry I am, how lonely I'm feeling, how upset or angry I'm feeling. The acronym is HALT. It's pulled from the 12-step program, but I don't necessarily, I'm not a huge proponent of 12-step. I just really love that model. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And it could be any kind of stress. So first, Stress is cumulative. So when my spouse comes at me or when my partner comes at me and I'm triggered, it is to whatever degree I have the unprocessed trauma. And also if I have one of those 4 letters, HALT, if I have one of those 4 things that are really, really intense for me, like maybe I didn't sleep at all because my boy was crying, or maybe I haven't eaten all day because I've been, quote, busy. A lot of things that happen in that moment can be extremely, like you said, projective. I'm not able to take on the patience to listen to her, to be present for her, to slow my breathing, to relax my jaw, to pull in my belly, to exhale my belly, and to just listen to what she's saying, knowing that if I do that, I have access to my heart, I have access to my soul. But if my physical conduit's clouded, if I'm stressed, if I'm tired, if I'm angry, if I'm lonely, that's when bad things happen, right? That's when we snap, that's when we yell, that's when we do things where we hurt other people. And enough of that happens to where we will then connect the dots and go, you know what? This is a small, very quick inventory. I am going to eat breakfast tomorrow. I am going to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to take care of myself so that I can respond instead of react, instead of project onto my partner. And sometimes the inventory doesn't always happen proactively, Ben. Sometimes it happens reactively, proactively.
Right.
I'll look at my week and I'll say, oh my God, I was pretty upset this week. Okay. That's when I bust out the journal. I grab the journal and I go through a very, very powerful yet potent practice, right? I bust out the journal and I think about in my life, I'm doing it tonight for a men's group. As soon as we're done with this podcast, I'm going to a men's group and I'm introducing this concept to them. We're all going to do it together. So I'm practicing what I preach because I believe in it and it works for me and it's worked for a lot of clients and it works for many, many, many people. We also put it in the Breathe program. We also put it in our signature program because it's so powerful. So you take that journal and on the left side of the page, you take your time after you do your breath work, after you do your meditation, when you're in a calm state and you reflect so you can learn. First of all, you ask Spirit for humility. It's like, okay, Spirit, how can I be humble to learn what I need to know? And please give me the wisdom so I can integrate it. Those 2 things. Then you do your breath work, you meditate. You write down 10 things on the left side of the paper that are causing you pain. It's your job, it's your health, it's your sister-in-law, it's your dad, whatever. And really be the sincerity of your inventory will impact the results and your healing. The sincerity is the most important thing. So when I'm really sincere, I'm writing down 10 things on that left side that are truly, truly causing me pain or stress. Then I take a breath, then I go to the right side. Then I write 10 things that I am very grateful for. And when I say grateful, I do not mean like I'm grateful for string beans, unless you really love string beans, that's cool. But 10 things that you truly, truly love. Like I love my child. I love my wife. I love my partner. I love the way that breeze feels on my skin. I love the way that forest needles, like pine needles smell in the forest, like things that you actually love. And then this is the big thing. You take a breath, you circle the one on the left that's causing you the most pain. You circle the one on the right that's truly something that you are most grateful for. It doesn't have to be the only thing you're grateful for. It's just whatever you feel the most pull, whatever pulls you towards the most gratitude then. And then this is the big one. We talked about, Ben, when you asked me for the collective healing, what can we do? This is more the subjective, the individual healing, because really what you're going to do is you're going to circle those 2 and you're going to reach out to someone. So you're going to reach out to a coach, an advisor, a guide, a mentor, a friend that's really trusted. And this is a caveat. We have to be super careful who we share this with because their degree of emotional intelligence and you'll really find out who your true friends are when you share with them your dreams, when you share with them your inventory. So be cautious of that. And then once you've found that person, then share with them. So for example, Ben, what's causing me the most stress right now is some unprocessed trauma. And I've identified it as this. I am committed to looking at that. I am committed to actually moving forward and getting therapy or getting sessions or whatever it is, because I love my woman so much and I want to be there for her and I want to be there for my son. Thank you for hearing me out. And then if somebody's really great, they might say, well, how can I support you in that? Right? They don't have to though. You don't go into it with an expectation. And then you might say something like, well, can we touch base next week? And can I share with you my progress in healing and taking an honest look at the thing that's causing me the most pain? Dude, there's so much going on there. There's true inventory. There's gratitude practice. There's a scanning of what's really going on with you. You're slowing it down. You're seeing the loops of the ego. A lot of times what I've had clients do is they'll write down like, I can't stop talking terribly to myself. I can't stop calling myself a fat ass. I can't stop calling myself a lazy piece of shit. That's what you write down, because that's obviously the ego. That's the learned behavior.
Yeah.
So anyways, the high level of all of this and how this rounds out is that when you take the time to do the personal inventory and you see it for really what it is, you'll start to get more wise over time. You'll start to see like, okay, my ego is totally in control right now. What wisdom is my heart offering me? Okay, my heart feels sad. My heart feels sad. What does my soul know to be true? Why is this occurring? Well, my soul can see that in this situation, I made a mistake. I made a learning lesson. And the most powerful thing I can do is go to the person that I hurt, even if it's myself, and apologize and ask, how can I do better? How can I show up better? And through that lens of 3, we start to really watch the whole thing from up above or out there, or whatever it is. And the observer is just like smiling. You know, I feel like God's love just kind of smiles on us all the time, even in moments where, you know, I fall prey to it too, where my ego is taking over. But the very last thing I'll say is the antidote to all this, trapped in our mind, all this stuff. The antidote to all this is the wisdom of the heart. If we're a victim of our own mind, if we're a victim of our own intellectualization, we can only heal it through the heart's wisdom, through the soul's wisdom. And that's basically the end of the road.
I feel you. It's not like an algorithm or an intellectual trick that allows for the healing to happen. And I like how you were talking about the sincerity of what you write down on that page will give rise to the ratio of the amount of room that the inner wisdom has to fill. Like if you're being super sincere, like, you know, or if you're still kind of like you're half-assing it, you're not really getting to the heart of it, you're not being truly honest with yourself. Yeah. It's like you're having a conversation with yourself. And then you also mention it, like bringing it to other people, whether it's a person that like you feel there needs to, amends need to be made in the relationship, or somebody else that you just, I value your opinion. I feel like you have a good handle on some things. I want to lay some stuff on you and just see what your take is. And it's to yourself, what you're doing is you're openly saying, I want to be critiqued, and I know you can do this. I know you probably see things in me that I don't see. And then, but it's also the way that we talk to ourselves. I noticed that, like, when we talk about the way we talk about ourselves, I was also thinking that if we can interrupt that and speak to ourselves like the most ideal teacher, we all know, like, how we like to be taught, how we like to be talked to, what kind of tone of voice or what, kind of methodology somebody could use that would completely diminish or help the most to keep our head in the game, to keep our head like still wishing for the healing, not cutting it off and saying, no, you said it wrong, come back next week. Yeah. It's a difficult trick there, but it's also the way that we talk to ourselves. We have to almost treat ourselves like there's many selves within, and we're speaking to that hurt part of ourselves from the healed part of ourselves, which coexist, and really saying, like, this is what I see, but I'm not going to speak to myself harshly because I'm pissed at myself for acting in a way that I feel like I should have done better. So instead of like talking to myself the way that I would expect to get talked to in this kind of a moment, I'm going to allow for that moment to step into what would the most ideal teacher say? What would the most humble, wise, intelligent person say?
You know what I was just feeling in the car yesterday? Because I heard somebody say this quote, and I think it was Brian Tracy or someone. It was like, change your mindset, change your life. And I was like, that's cool. But that's kind of like an intellectual phrase, And I was feeling into my heart, and I was like, what does my heart really want to say when it comes to a phrase or a mantra or something? And I was like, oh, what would wisdom do? What would wisdom do right now? What would wisdom do? Because wisdom is so different than information or knowledge. Like you could have 4 PhDs on the wall and be an alcoholic, straight up. You just can. And what would wisdom do is wisdom would learn that there's a massive difference between their thoughts, their feelings, and their emotions, because A lot of times we think that, the feelings are experienced consciously, but the emotions manifest in lots of different ways physically. Extra weight, deleterious behaviors, or even subconsciously. Like if I experience an emotion of sadness, if I'm in grief for a long time and I don't have the right tools to grow out of that and to process that and honor my grief and honor my sadness, I could get stuck in that. And before you know it, I'm in an echo chamber where I just believe, now my beliefs have been changed, that grief is all life is about. Life is sad. Everything is sad. Everything is sad. So wisdom comes in, and it really, I guess you could say, the analogy I was thinking of was like Moses when he parted the seas, but it's actually more than that. Wisdom comes in and it sifts and sorts all the ingredients so they're separate in your mind and your heart and for your soul. So there can be a 30,000 foot view. Wisdom looks from up above. Wisdom looks down and says, okay, we've made some harsh decisions here. We've been speaking to ourselves in a very uncomfortable way. Let's get curious about that. Where did I learn that from? Did I learn that from my dad, my grandpa, my grandma, my brother, my being bullied, whatever it is? Like, where did I learn how to speak to myself like that? That is a much more potent, much more wise inquiry of curiosity than, trying to go and do your 75th ayahuasca ceremony so that spirit will heal you. That's the wrong energy. That's the wrong energy to heal yourself. So I think that's what wisdom would do is, it would come in and it would softly, gently separate some of these ingredients, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and it would give some stillness to the water so that then we can make a educated place, inspiring for action. When we're more educated, we can make better decisions. So the education of self is ongoing. I would say on my deathbed, I'll still be learning stuff, but it's a continuum, man.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully, like, we're all students and teachers from cradle to grave. And what I love about that is you were saying honoring your sadness and honoring your grief. What a foreign topic to most people, though. Yeah. Those two things that we try and like speed through, loneliness,
especially in today's
grief.
Social media world where you don't show that. You only show the best of times.
It's demonized.
And it's all about creating FOMO in your friends and family.
Yes.
Everything is got the perfect filter, and I woke up and I just look perfect and everything. It's like, well, I mean,
and then on top of that, Gordo, on top of that, there's also this other piece where people are strategically vulnerable, and they're like, hey guys, I'm about to be vulnerable. Like, I just woke up, and they're actually posting as if they were vulnerable to give some variety to their newsfeed, but they're not actually being vulnerable. They're just strategically playing the game, dude.
It's because then when people are being truly vulnerable, it's like, man, you are. That's cold. That's pretty cold. So, but and that kind of ties into what you're saying, Ben, is like, how have we created these algorithms that have incentivized this? Like, could we have different algorithms that incentivize true authenticity, true vulnerability, true like, hey, show the best of ourselves and the best of like our progress, but also the worst of ourselves, but in a loving way. I think that's the big challenge. Like when we talk with Bill Ottman and Lex Fridman, a lot of these tech CEOs and visionaries are like, can we create alternatives to this? Or is
it's the wrong place? It's the wrong place. I think we're looking in the wrong place for connection and community and self-empowerment. I think the reason is because we're in this technological world. And so we're like, oh yeah, it must be technology. We've all been sold this adage of, well, if we just solve the world's biggest problem with the best technology, then, everybody will be happy. It's a triple win. We'll get paid. We'll serve humanity, and something will serve when we're gone. Whatever happened to slowing down and just actually being a human being? Just being a fucking human being and not being on your phone all day and not depending on apps to tell you your HRV, your sleep quality and all this stuff. I mean, there's a place for it. When we're really out of bounds, some of these tools can bring us back, especially if we're trapped in a world of tech. But what we really need is to slow the fuck down and take some time for inventory of each other, of ourselves, of all these things. That's why this interview, this podcast, could change someone's life if they just really truly listened, if they really slowed down their breathing and listened from their heart and checked in with their soul and noticed and held the voices that are going on in their head. your life could really change, because you might snap to and you'll say, wow, I was looking at my behavioral app. I was looking at my habit change app, and I noticed that my habit change app wasn't really giving me wisdom of the heart, wasn't really giving me wisdom for my soul. It was giving me lots of information. It was giving me intellectual stuff. Like, oh yeah, look at my data yesterday. It was 12% off. Oh, okay, maybe I should do that new like trampoline with the lasers on it. You know, that that might not always be the right path. So I think we're looking in the wrong arena. I think what we need to do is, you know, Ben, like we've been talking about, is bringing people together in nature. And everybody can do that. It's a lie that you can't, because wherever you are, whatever city you live in, you can drive to nature. You can be in nature if you choose. You just have to prioritize it.
This is true.
Well, I just think the challenge is, how do those two worlds coexist, right?
That was going to be my question, because I feel like what we talked about, like going into nature, isn't going to solve for the economic world that also demands that we connect deeper and deeper with the smart internet of everything.
Yeah.
And but what I'm hearing is that this is it's a perfect balance. And like, you know, I guess what we need is some way to help us integrate. And emotional inventory feels like integration of the onslaught of what happens when we're in the rat race. And sometimes you just got to be in the rat race. You know that, I know that. And when you're a parent, like, you can feel like shit, you're sick. That doesn't mean your kid doesn't need fed, right? And it doesn't mean you don't need to get some work done. So, you know, the emotional inventory is really incredible there as well. And I mean, I feel like if people were more, if people understood listening to themselves and honoring the voice that comes from within, and not just having to fact check it everywhere and socially validate it outside of ourselves, then we would bring something new to the technology. But if we're hoping that technology itself is the thing that's going to take care of the problem, then we've already outsourced it. You know, we haven't engaged with our own healing. We've done the allopathic model of, let the expert give me something, I'm going to take it, not engage with it, I'm going to forget about it and call them in the morning.
This breaks my heart. I have to piggyback on what you said, man. I saw a clip when I was perusing through Instagram, and it was of the press secretary for the White House. And someone asked, hey, I noticed during this time that there really hasn't been a lot of information about how to boost your immune system, about how exercise and sunlight and vitamin D and all of these things can actually help people have a strong immune system. And you know what her response was? It wasn't, well, that's a good idea. You know, we definitely are looking. She said, well, first of all, gave some kind of just robotic, corporate, disgusting answer. She said, well, first of all, we tend to go with the wisdom of the experts. We seek guidance from the WHO and the CDC on these matters. And all we do know is that when you get fully vaccinated and boosted, that's going to give you the best chance. She didn't even answer her question. This is the malady. This is the sickness of the intellect that the media, the mass media, is inflicting upon people. And they do it as if it's no big deal. To me, I feel rage and anger in my stomach, in my first and second chakra. So I know that it's not coming from my ego. I feel that anger in my heart. I feel that anger in my body. This is not some intellectual game where I'm like, oh, I'm really mad at her and I don't know why. I know in my heart why I'm pissed off, because below my anger is sadness. I'm sad that all of our brothers and sisters and people in the world are believing this dog food as if it's for us. Yeah. I mean, this is literally toxic information that is, it's killing people. And it's even more sinister than that. It's making people fucking slaves to a system that is going to continue to monetize from them. And then before you know it, they'll be wearing Oculus and be on Metaverse, and the list goes on and on and on. So what's the solution to this? The solution to this is to provide wisdom of the heart like we're doing now. It doesn't serve me to go on my podcast or your podcast and be super heady and super intellectual and spout out all the research about how masks don't work. That's just two intellects and two egos fighting each other. That's not going to bring me anywhere. So what is going to bring me anywhere is when I share how sad I am from my heart, how angry I am from my heart, that people are believing this falsity as truth. That's really what we need to have lots and lots of conversations about.
It's true. And it has to be mentioned, it's not all not that we're saying we need to take it all on ourselves, but it's not all on us. I mean, it's okay to have questions and to be hesitant about anything. It's a natural part of the human inquiry, is to have questions and be hesitant. And when you see that definitions of certain things like anti this and anti that are, the definitions themselves are changing. Here's the scary one, is because now, and maybe you could pull this up, Gordo, at dhs.gov. It's a February 7, 2022 bulletin. And on that bulletin, it gives a new definition for domestic terrorist. And the reading of it is ridiculous. But by the second sentence, the first sentence, they're talking about misinformation and disinformation and misleading narratives. And maybe see if you could scroll up to where it says the United States, or is that it right there? I'm going to try.
NTAS bulletin, it says.
Yeah.
The United States remains in a heightened threat environment fueled by several factors.
Yes. So I'm going to see this one. I can
zoom in too.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it now. So let's just say number one, actually, let me quickly move through this. Number one, the proliferation, and this is how you know you've fallen into the category of being a domestic terrorist. And tell me if you feel worried about this or not. Number one is if you're involved in the proliferation of false or misleading narratives. Now, misleading narratives is interesting because the CNN narrative is a misleading narrative according to Fox. The Fox narrative is, the same according to CNN. And that's a very vague category right there. So see if we can get back to that. I want to compare number one with number two and number three.
Number one.
Scroll back down.
Oh, these bullet points right here?
Yeah.
Okay,
and I know we only have a little bit more time.
Right here, yeah.
Okay, so scroll. I can't see it. It's a little too high.
Here, I'll make it bigger.
And scroll back up a little bit. I can't see number two. Right there. Where does number two come in? Yeah. Continued calls. So this is the distinction. If you're somebody that is spreading misleading narratives, you can be a domestic terrorist. Number two, continued calls for violence directed at U.S. critical infrastructure. And then number three is calling upon terrorist groups to, basically inflict damage on the U.S. So it's just like, have you murdered somebody? Are you calling for like insurrection from the inside and treason from within? Or are you spreading misleading narratives? Because, if they're lumping it all in at one, and that admittedly not just makes me kind of like, oh, you guys are ridiculous. The way that this is the, Homeland Security. In the way they're describing this, it almost seems like, well, if you have a podcast, you could fit into that category.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't say misleading narratives on what or anything. So that makes me not just kind of a little upset in my first and second, but that also a little bit worries me, because it's just how much more ridiculous does it have to get before all of a sudden, people who don't know this podcast, might just be like, Ben, I heard you're, a DT now. I heard you're in that category. Like, what happened? And they're not able to get a response from me. And then their imagination just goes wild. It's like, oh, he must have done something terrible. Yeah, it's on my YouTube page. I try and balance out conversations that are heavy, and lopsided. So that's one thing that, I at least need to be honest about that. And so I would love to know your thoughts. I know we have 8-10 more minutes to go, but I'd love to know your thoughts on how honest can we start being with other people if this is what's happening in the collective?
What scares me the most and what I have the most trouble with is my soul knows that things are going to get bad. And I'm not saying that to freak people out or to be I'm not trying to spread bad energy. This is my experience, by the way. It doesn't have to be yours. It doesn't have to be anyone watching. This is just my experience. My soul tells me that things will get bad and that this was a test. This was a test. You know, you ever heard that? This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. Beep.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this was. Not kind of, that was what this was and still continues to be. I think we have hit a crescendo. I think if you look at the UK and if you look around the world, like the revolutions, what's happening in Canada with the trucks, like we are past that point of no return, where the powers that be ran an experiment that maybe they thought was going to completely go their way. And, you know, it's a victory for us. It's a victory for freedom because people have risen up. People are awake. People do see what's going on. But what is most scary is that right now, I believe what is happening and what makes me the most sad and really the kind of like prepared for war is that the wheat is getting separated from the chaff, or the ocean is being parted and there will be divisions between islands. And that makes me sad because it's a war of the mind. We're in a war of the mind, but the prize is our fucking souls.
Yeah.
You know, we are being attacked from a mental construct. You're in fear. Don't trust your body. Your immune system doesn't work. No, listen to us. We know what's best for you. Where else did you see that? How many movies have shown us that archetype? How many artists have warned us that this was coming? But yet so many people ignore it as if it's not real. There is, and I'm not trying to shame these people either. I'm not sitting here, and I used to, when this first started, I was like, you fucking idiots. Look what's going on. I was totally in my ego. I was totally like, rah, rah, rah. And now it's more sadness. I'm honoring the sadness that I feel, not because I'm better, but because I feel like I can see higher. I feel like there's a higher viewpoint for me here. And that makes me sad what I read there with you on that website, because people are believing that because it is what they continue to be fed. And unfortunately, I do feel at some point there is going to be some cataclysmic events that we are going to have to contend with. And it is going to be the people that believe in freedom, that believe in listening to your heart, that believe in the divine plan of our consciousness unfolding and of us being connected together. And then they're going to be the people that only believe in science as a god, and in the intellect as the ultimate truth, and in the ego as the director of your action. And that's what makes me really sad. And it's coming. It's coming.
You know, thank you for that. I love how honest and raw you can get there. And I think that's really, that speaks to what I was talking about. How could this get out in a way that not scales, but reaches collective critical mass? And you have to show honest, authentic examples of this. And I think what's beautiful about all this is it's pushing, you know, if you were to go back and look through Waking Infinity through last year, and then the last few episodes I've been doing and the next few episodes that I have in the can, I feel it even in myself that I'm leveling a little bit more. Like, okay, I think next week is the Ottawa Freedom Truckers Convoy or something like that, and I'm listening to both sides. I make a lot of fun because I love doing that. I make a lot of fun, but then I balance it out and say, here's how I edit it. Here's how I made it look like it was, like these people were a little bit more crazy than they actually are. Let's break down the tactics. But I love how raw that you allow yourself to get there, because I don't think people even know that it's valuable until they see somebody perform real, authentic, raw, radical honesty like you just did, and be like, oh my God, why did that feel so refreshing?
Because we are all being taught that showing sacred anger or doing anything that's not, quote, good vibes only is shamed. And Gordo talked about this earlier. People are being shamed for not being peppy, for not being positive.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just an atrocity, the level of shaming that's going on, not just from social media, but you see it from celebrities.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was very famous. At one point, he was like, screw your freedom.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and this is a guy that literally built his career on the backs of freedom, So like for him to say that, I think everyone just threw away their copy of Terminator 2. I know I did. I'll never watch his movies again. Not because I'm going to cancel him, but because I don't want to be in that energy realm. I don't want to contribute to that energy. So there is something to be said about this. It's another whole podcast that we could talk about what's happening in that construct. But it really does break my heart, and I think that there is a way out. I'm not doom and gloom. I'm not saying that there's never going to end, because this too shall pass. Everything passes. Everything passes.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity to heal. We have the opportunity to come together. But I think because of the nature of growth and because of how a child learns to walk or ride a bike, we have to get bloody. We have to fall down. We have to hurt ourselves. We have to hurt each other. And then and only then can we learn how to do it without hurting one another anymore. And we're still a child as a species.
This is true, man, dude. Like, such beautiful words. We're pretty much at the end of the hour right now. And I just want to, I don't know if it's too early to mention what we have going on in the works, but what do you think?
I think so. I think we say it.
Cool. For the audience, Josh and I and two other lovely individuals are planning. It's looking like I think the best opportunity might still be in April.
Yeah. April or August.
April or August. So April or August, still don't even have a location. Basically anywhere in the States, somewhere gorgeous where we can do an immersion into nature and really, there's so many different elements to it. I'm wondering where to even start. But basically, the first one is going to be a men's group. It's a bit more controllable, and that way we can gather some good kind of just ways of refining our ability to work with one another, and then do something bigger at some point with hopefully not just men and women, but at some point even with full families, and do that thing. What is it called? It's way back in the day we used to do. Yeah, community. And doing it in nature, right? So yeah. I would love for you just to, because you're the one who brought this up, I would love your thoughts on why this is important and valuable, and what you're really excited to share with the world.
I'm excited to share this with the world, but I also know that it's my medicine too, because the best thing that anyone can do that truly believes in their heart that they have something valuable to share, not from the ego, but really hey, this is a really valuable thing that I think will benefit us all. And we all have our unique gifts. So myself and you and Jordan and Tim, everybody has a unique background, unique gifts: storytelling, breathwork, outdoorsmanship skills, survival skills, vision quest, soul wander, telling stories. Storytelling is an art form. All of these things are going to be integrated into this event, because not only are we going to be back in nature and really reestablish our cellular activity to the world, to nature herself, and also our circadian rhythm, but also all of these things, these skill sets, telling stories, survival training, being out in nature, following the needle of nature. All these things are really valuable that you cannot put a price tag on. You just can't. And then, put into that emotional inventory practice, connection with other men, connection with yourself. Maybe it'll be a space where you can be in nature and connect with a part of yourself that you haven't connected with in so long, that the ultimate goal is that you bring that medicine back to your family, back to your community, and then you be that for your community, just like we talked about with the rock and the ripples.
Yeah. And
then eventually the ripples start colliding, and there's so many ways, and the shoreline changes. We're in a totally different lake, or in a totally different ocean. So I'm excited about that, and we'll see if it's going to be in mid-April, or we'll see if it's going to be in the end of August.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that as well. And as you were explaining it, I was like, it's fully immersive reality. It's almost like the metaverse. So I would love to see a commercial of this where there's a bunch of people walking around almost like this in nature, but no heads up display, nothing. They're just like, like you're seeing all these people, it's like, it's immersive reality, fully immersive. It smells like you're actually in nature. And
4D vision, 5D,
it's
smell-o-vision.
It's right out there. Man, what a world. And I love it.
Yeah.
And I feel grateful for all of the tomfoolery and fuckery that's going around, because it's really causing me to understand why it's important to refine and really define for myself what is freedom, what is community, what is health moving towards wholeness. And man, dude, I love the way that you put all of this. I really appreciate you coming and spending all this time. I know you got a little one. Please tell us anything that other than what we just talked about that you might have coming up, what people can expect, where they can find you.
Yes. Well, this is beautiful because on 2/22/22, I'm going through a death and a rebirth cycle. It's a Tuesday. Yeah. 2/22/22. I'm going. We always come out with our episodes on Tuesday, so this is like seriously divine timing. I am letting Wellness Force podcast die. I'm letting it die, and in its place, I'm birthing Wellness Wisdom. Because when I started the podcast in 2015, I really was coming from a place of force where I wanted to be successful. I wanted to learn, and I still do, but I'm not in such a damn hurry anymore.
Yeah.
And now that I'm a father, and now that I really feel like I can bring value to other men, to people, I've been doing this for 7 years now in the podcasting world. You know, it's a natural evolution. So that's what I'm most excited about. I mean, that's what's fresh on my heart. That's what makes me like pop emotionally, because I've been feeling this for quite some time. And so I'm literally birthing a new style of conversation, a new exploration of what wellness wisdom actually is. And if you look on the website, you know, we have this phrase where we say honoring the intelligence in us all. We're all in the process of discovering physical and emotional intelligence so we can live our life well. And it's funny because when I say that, what actually is a more perfect fit is the word wisdom. Because true intelligence embodied is wisdom. So it all, I mean, I just got chills when I told you that, because it's like, this is what I'm here to do. This is what is lighting me up right now. So I don't know how it's going to be received. And really, quite frankly, I don't really care. I know that it's going to be a different style of conversation. And I know that it's going to be a different SEO, different everything. And so, of course, I'm like, you know, little identity crisis. What are people going to think? Meanwhile, I'm just going to get to serving and having the conversations. So that's what I'm most stoked about. And everything's going to be found at joshtrent.com. So joshtrent.com is going to be the headquarters, and everything's going to stem from there, all the content, all the things. So I'm in the middle of a death and rebirth, man. That's I'm really excited about that.
Dude, I love it. And I love the way you put it. If you at least bring the mindfulness and the intention that that's what it is. You're honoring the passing away of something that you built that's incredible, man. I love your Zach Bush interview, man. And I've been going through your catalog, and your John Gray interview. Incredible. Yeah. Please, people, go to Spotify or however you podcast and check out Wellness Force. And it was this very last podcast, very good podcast, super insightful about intimacy, seed retention, really cool stuff. You're gonna love it. Thank you so much to the entire chat group over here. There's a lot of people really appreciative for what you're doing here, Josh.
Oh man, let me look and see real quick before I go, because I want to give some love.
Yeah, Maria Love Photography was saying like, wow, that sounds amazing, to the group, you know, to the men's group. If you needed someone to help firm it, I think she means film it, because she and I talked before about documentary work.
Oh, cool.
That'd be interesting. You'd be the only female, but I mean, like, you know, perhaps that'd be brilliant. We just haven't found a location yet. That's the only thing that we're looking for. Yeah. And then next time around, we're not doing a men's group because of anything other than like it would be a little bit, I don't know, it'd be a little bit tricky for us to do this the first time as a group and assume that we know how to hop into that territory. So we're also very humbly holding space for the right elements to come together where we can do full family immersions and couples immersions. I think that'd be incredible.
Yes, and it's actually to honor the feminine, because we want to keep it very simple the first time we do this, and make sure that, you know, if we did want to have women there, that we want to have a female facilitator there, and as it stands, this will be our first event. So we really want to make sure that we're doing it with the right intention and the right process and the right speed. So that's why we're doing it this way right now. And thank you guys for all the comments. This is really amazing. I'm humbled. Like the greatest gift I've ever received is someone else's genuine attention where we're trying to create the same thing. So I really appreciate all these comments. And I don't know if these comments are saved. Are these comments saved?
Yeah, if
Or
you
are they
just,
not?
afterwards, this is just live on YouTube or
Oh,
published on
got it.
YouTube, so people can go
There's a
and
ton
scroll
of
through it.
comments. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Mark Giordano. Thanks, Mark. And thank you, everyone else that commented. Thank you, Gordo. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, brother. Super
pleasure.
excited. Second time you've been on the show. Very excited for this. Ladies and gentlemen, I love this line of work. It's really simply having conversations with good people about things that we find important and also bringing the play and the curiosity element to it. We do this every single Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So get involved in the Discord chat. Please give some love to Wellness Force that will be turning into Wellness Wisdom, and also go to joshtrent.com. When will that be live, real quick?
2/22/22.
Oh, that will be live 2/22/22.
All of it 2/22/22. Yeah.
Damn, we will blast it out on 2/22/22.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much for constantly coming back. The chats are always really beautiful, amazing energy. And with that being said, I love you all. Keep your head cool. Remember your breath. And I'll catch you guys next time on the Ben Stewart Podcast.